This is IBM Museum, and I thought this is a pretty good chance for an update. Something I'd learned about these PCMCIA Token-Ring cards. I had made even some video shorts and went through and kind of complained to friends that, hey, I just wasn't able to get some of these to work. So as a little bit of a rehash here, I have, there's the two different types of these PCMCIA adapters. And I've shown the videos, I've shown how different they are in this little hologram shine. And this is the Auto Token-Ring. And I'm going to tone down my, just to see it. It's identified as the Auto. And then that's kind of what I call a starburst effect on that. And the Turbo version, it has that hologram of the colored IBM. And I have 5 of these adapters, wasn't able to get them to work before. And of course, one of the comments I got as feedback from a friend tells me, yeah, it may have something to do with the cable connector. And this is really important in the aspect to the Token-Ring in particular. And let's go through, let's get the light back on. And you notice that there's so many pins for that, for going to a, in fact, they're duplicated each side on there. And it must be some sort of ring back or a loop back pins for some of these, just to make sure, because Token-Ring in particular, it has some pins on it for that, like that type 1 connector, that if it's not plugged in, it actually does a loop back to the device. And it doesn't do it, the loop back necessarily to the MAW itself. In other words, if you have a failed connection, that type 1 to the MAW, it goes through and it's more diagnosable from the in station. Now, I had commented too that there was a difference in the keying. Here on this left side, you can see that one of these plastic keyways just has a wider mark there, wider separation between those plastic bits, and the other connector does not. Now, I went through and there are some of the cables, that will go through, and I found that would go through and connect to the Turbo version. And it was kind of tight, and I actually found out there were some of these with the wider pins arrangement that they'd fit in there just real tight, but they're just not designed for that. Now you'll notice I made other comments when I first went over these cables as well, that I talked about, hey, I've got some that don't have these black retention, or they going through and looking at the connectors I have to my 8239 right now. This one is black on this for the second connection, whereas this is green, and it matches up for the colors up here. But just to make things more confusing, there's actually, that color doesn't mean anything for the real connection between whether it's an auto or a turbo adapter. It is more so for the, I have these cables, and in fact I can bring them up for just the diverse things that they have on them. See, you have one here that it's got a black retainer, little slide, but it's got a green connection. There was one that has, there's a black end, and I think even the retainer side, I'd go through this rat's nest. Oh, there's one separate spool. Okay. How am I? Well, okay, so there they separate. There's another one that's got the, green plug on one end, and the black retaining slider in there. So just like the other one I set down. Here's one that's got black at both ends. Now, IBM went through and marked these. I'll see if this is visible enough. So it's got an FRU in that embossed plastic. And it's actually I was going to write this down beforehand, but it's ultimately like a 92G, I think it's like an 8974, and I was thinking even on the little shorty adapters, it's the same. I want to kind of leave this one out as an example, just because it's got the black retaining slider on it, and the black RJ45. So I went through, get cords all around here, try and keep this out of a confusion angle as well. Let's see it from here. Okay. Some of these is really easier to see. Okay, so 93G or 92G 9373. And I think on this one we saw even it's got a 4 at the end. But it goes through, and it's got ultimately the wider splay between those two pins and things like that. Even on these little short connectors, I looked through on their FRUs. Okay, so that's, and that's the same FRU part number as the long cord, even though it has a different end. FRU is supposed to be field replaceable unit. It's supposed to be equivalent, having the same effective connections and everything else. Maybe they supplied an adapter with that. This one's slightly longer, has a little bit different of end. But we see that 92G 9373 FRU. Now, if we go through and look to the one that plugs into this Turbo Token-Ring, I mean, it does have the all black connections. This is the one that I have going to the 8239. And it has ultimately a different FRU, of course, get to focus here. So we're a 38H 7 Is that a 044? So it is a different FRU, at least, to be of help. But with the color on these connectors being black, green, whatever else, it's not a real good indicator that that the cable would go through and work for you. You know, whether it's on the turbo or apparently the much more common auto adapter. But I did see one little aspect here. Let's bring up our other black, you know, cable that's black at both ends for that retainer and the RJ45. You'll notice that this has a ferrule on the cable. All the cables that go through and connect into these Turbo PCMCIA adapters have this ferrule on it. And this is a good visual aid for knowing, because all the cables that plug into the auto adapter are without that ferrule. And even for, you know, some of these that go in kind of tight into the turbos, you know, that it's incorrect. I mean, ferrule goes with the Turbo PCMCIA. No ferrule on the cable goes with the auto adapter. Now, I'm probably going to be much more successful in going through and trying to get the system to recognize, because if you go through and you plug these in with no cable on them connected, it won't even recognize these. The system doesn't go through, and it's because of these loopback connections on this that it goes through and basically knows that it has the cable connected and everything else, which is important for the angles of the token ring diagnostic. So I've got the two adapters in hand. I can get rid of all the other cables I have around. And what I'm going to do here is, or one of the nice things is, that with this T40 laptop, I can go through and get over to the screen capture. Even still has up the screen, you know, on the unit itself, which is good too, real nice. It's able to, and there's not any distortion or anything else. I mean, it goes through and you see the sync messages from what I used to video capture, but it works great. So what I'm going to do here, since I had so much trouble with the turbo adapters before, I'm going to go through and I'm going to go through and insert it first into the laptop. We'll set the auto adapter aside with its cable. So here's the turbo adapter. We've got the screen capture. We can go through and put it into the unit. And we'll give it a little bit of time here to recognize that, because, and of course, I'm not seeing any indicator light come on the 8239. We're just really not seeing any activity. I mean, we're hearing the the A239 go through and click for its ring in, ring out ports just to see if it's stacked with anything else. Let's try the lower connector. Okay, so there, so that's interesting. It came up as an unknown adapter, and we are connected onto the Ethernet network. We can do the automatically, see if it goes through on this. Because, I mean, at least getting it to go through, okay. So there may be, you know, something more specific to this, turbo version that I'll have to see if I can go through and locate the files. And we're going with Windows XP here, which should go through. I mean, I can try on those Dells, running Windows 2000, to see if it goes through and can recognize that. And I think there is a difference, and it may be voltage or something else between the upper and lower PCMCIA slots there. We can go through and check the adapters that didn't find it otherwise, but at least now we're seeing the system recognize it a little bit better, and we do have the cables, and we got that visual indication to know which cable goes with which PCMCIA adapter, and that keyway and everything else. And I can go through and document that, take photos and all. Let's go through. Let's put the auto adapter in there. Kind of see what that gives us. Because this one was going through, and it was, I was seeing this being recognized properly before. Now, I've had, since the auto adapters worked for me before, I've actually had a time that I went through and I got the adapter working on this system. So that's probably why we're not seeing okay. So here it is. In fact, it gives a limited or no connectivity, but it did go through and recognize this as the IBM Auto 16/4 Token-Ring. And it's going through, it's actually looking for a, and the limited or no connectivity is actually tied to the DNS ultimately, and also an IP address. If we would go through and provide an address, it would populate. It would be able to go through and give a good indication, just like we saw on those when I tried it on the Dells and did the transfer, going through and setting a manual IP address on this, where I don't have a DHCP server on my Token-Ring network. It's not going to go through and assign an address automatically. So that's what that is. So even though we didn't get as far here with the again the turbo to show, I wanted to look through even on this just to kind of see You know, as it says, the device is working properly. There's some settings just as a normal network adapter would have, and that can be adjusted as well. I don't know if it has a, yeah, it has a network data rate, and that would be, I think that would ultimately be where we would see the 16, yeah, auto. It listed as M16 or M4. I would think it would show that the other way around, to a 16 megabit per second or 4 megabit per second rate, but it shows it the other way, for maybe just to get it in somewhat more of an alphabetical order or something else going on there. But we did learn, at least for the cable connections, what cable goes with which PCMCIA adapter, and so we're a little bit further on, at least my understanding of what's going on with it, and I'm able to get those other adapters in there and everything else. I may go through my other adapters and just to kind of see if I can get one to be recognized. I have no idea of the source or anything else of these things when I got them, to whether they're operational or not. So, you know, if you thought that this is informative, you like this video content, go ahead and click on that like button, please. And subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. Recommend it to your friends that are interested in this sort of content, Token-Ring or whatever, I don't know, the topics I cover, so I can get more subscribers. That'd be fantastic. But this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Thank you.